Alright guys, so this is Jamie. I'm going to go over one of the things that I have become passionate about over the years of farming is canning. We do a huge summer garden. So this year we were like, we're going to invest a little bit of time into a fall garden. So we kind of just threw it together last minute. So I'm going to go over some canning tips that I do. Today we're going to be canning some collard greens and rutabagas. And I know most canners will understand that this process is long, so I'll try to shorten it as easy as I can, and hopefully you enjoy this video. Alright, so before I get started, I want to go over a few things with you. So today I'm going to be canning with quart and pint size jars. Lots of bowls, some knives. Got all these greens with scissors. Scissors come in good hand. And then we have a canner, pressure canner, and then of course you need lots of pots. As you can see, I have the greens soaking and cleaning. We're going to get started on de-stemming them and cutting them up. I'm not picky about how I cut them up. The fastest I could get them cut up, I'm just going to cut them up. We'll go through them and cut any bad spots out of the greens and get the process started. Oh, and one little trick I have learned over the years, of course these jars get used year after year after year. I wash them, sterilize them, inspect them very well because all of us canners really hate for a jar to bust. So I try to investigate the jars every year to make sure that I have the best jars using as I'm canning. And then to keep my jars hot while I'm in the process of this, since I no longer have a dishwasher in the current farmhouse. So one trick that I have learned is to set my oven on as low as it'll go. I wash and sterilize. We've got all of these jars staying nice and hot in the oven. It makes things super easy. So throughout this, I'm going to work on de-stemming. A lot of people don't like this thick stem in their greens. I have learned over this short amount of time of canning greens, this is actually my second round of canning some greens, is these scissors really work best. Your fingers kind of get tired with the little knife in your hand as you're cutting a tremendous amount of greens. So these scissors kind of make things go a little bit faster, and my hands really appreciate it. So once I have all of these done and prepared, we will come back and actually go through the next process. One thing to watch when you're doing your greens is, you see that? So you're going to trim out any little bad spots. We don't want any chances of these jars souring. So I try to make sure I really look good at all of these. And what we don't use, we take to the chickens. See, that one's kind of just yellowing all the way on that side. So that one will just go to the chickens. Chickens really love when I bring them treats from the garden. Alright guys, so now that I have all of the greens de-stemmed and chopped up and ready to be blanched, that's going to be our next process. So I took the time to go ahead and have my water boiling on the stove. I have read you just blanch 3 to 5 minutes, and then once I have all of this blanched, then we'll actually get the canner started and start packing the jars and getting them in the canner. Alright, so now that we got all of the collard greens, my bad, blanched and ready to go in the jars. We're going to start packing the jars, and I'm going to go through the steps of that. So I'm going to pull out a few of my hot jars at a time and get them packed and start the process. So I have my hot water to fill the jars once I have the collard greens in it. I have my lids in hot water. So the key is not to pack these jars tight. So you want to just pack them lightly. This is one of the messy parts. When I say pack lightly, once you have it in there, you don't want to smush the collard greens down in because you want to give it plenty of space. They're still a little warm. So the recommended is leaving an inch of headspace. So that's from, you know, from the top of the greens to the jar. So once we have the greens in there, we're going to add a little bit of cannon salt, which is optional. I do not like to, so it says you could put up to a teaspoon of cannon salt in there. I try to do half of that because I much prefer them not to be salty and season them when I'm actually cooking them. So we got a little bit of cannon salt, so I do a half a teaspoon in each jar. And then I get my boiling hot water, start filling the jars. I try to fill right up to the inch headspace of the water, and then once I take my little tool and get the air bubbles out, I tend to have to put a little bit more water in because it gets around the greens. So this little tool, make sure air bubbles are out of the jars. You don't want to stir these while they're in there because you're trying to actually get the air bubbles to escape. So you kind of just glide it down around the side of the jar. And you can see all the air bubbles rise to the top. And as you can see, I have to add a little bit more water to each jar to get that 1 inch. Not much. And then I take my little lid tool and pull these hot lids out of the boiling water. Get my rings. So you only want to hand tighten these. And then as I'm filling these, I have the canner back here ready and hot. So as I'm filling the rest of my jars, I'm just going to go ahead and place these down in the canner so they don't cool down at any point. Get some more jars. I'm going to continue this process and get all 7 jars filled and then in the canner, and then I'll come back and we'll go over some of the process of actual canning and getting the lid locked down. Alright, so I have all 7 quart jars inside the canner, and this is a process where you have to let the canner vent itself. So there's this little bitty thing right there that will end up popping up once it is completely vented. And then once that is there, we will place the little weight, which is right there. And it'll get put on top right there, kind of like this. And then we get it to where it's rocking, and process this at 10 pounds for 70 minutes for the quart jars. And during the process of this, once it's done, I will be working on getting the rutabagas prepared to go in the canner. Alright, so as our collard greens are coming to the end of their canning process, once the timer goes off, I am going to remove it from the heat and let it depressurize on its own. And once that's done, then I can actually start the canning process of the rutabagas. I won't bore you with the video of that. So I hope you enjoyed my canning process today. If you like what you're seeing, you do that little subscribe thing and follow us. As the summer garden starts here in Georgia, I'm going to be posting a lot more things because I can a lot more during the summertime. So thanks for your time.